Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out ProRevenge. Story 1. Trying to take me home, better make sure I am who you think. Unsure if this counts as ProRevenge, but I like to think so, on behalf of catcalling victims everywhere. Alright, so to understand the story, you have to understand a few things about me. I am a 19-year-old guy. Bi, with a boyfriend. I'm often told I have a very feminine body. I've posted in the femboy sub here and there with positive response, but this is a throwaway and I'm not going to link anything for privacy reasons. I was out on a date a few weeks ago with my boyfriend, who I'll refer to as Alex, 20. For storytelling's sake, I'll go by Liam. We had just finished a movie date and decided to roam the dark streets of nightly NYC afterwards, just to chat and spend time together, as we don't live together. It's important to note that I was dressed up like a girl. I'm talking a crop top and skirt, plus some thigh highs. Come for me all you want, I like to feel pretty LMAO. I was waiting outside the convenience store while Alex grabbed some snacks when a tall man, early 20s and dressed like your local dealer, walked up to me and tried to act sexy. I'll refer to him as Creep. Creep, what's up, baby? You know you shouldn't be out here so late, all alone. I said nothing. Creep, now, come on, babe. When a man speaks to you, you respond. How about we go back to my place? Now, here's something I haven't mentioned. I have a high-ish voice. Still masculine, but high enough to where, if I try, I can muster up a good female voice. So I do. Me, MMM. No. Not interested. Creep, kmen, I don't bite. I just want to have a little fun. He got closer. I shook my head. At this point, Alex comes out with a bag of our snacks and notices the scene. Alex, everything all right, babe? Creep, babe? What, you're with this loser? Come on, let me show you what a real man can do for you. He put his hand on my hip. Alex started to walk forward, but I signaled for him to stay back. I had a plan. I put my hand on Creep's, then wrapped his arm around me and cuddled into his chest. He smelled like cigarettes, disappointed parents, and failed dreams. I look up at him, still in my girl voice. Oh, him? Don't mind him. If you want me. Then I switch to my normal voice. Then you can have me. Immediately he pushed me into Alex's arms and storms off, yelling obscenities mixed with a few homophobic slurs here and there, plus some transphobia tossed in for good measure. Me and Alex both go into hysterical laughter, nearly falling over each other. Once we calm down, he looks to me. You're really an asshole. You gotta stop doing that to guys. He chuckled. Hey, they all approached me. Story 2. Revenge on Evil Landlord. When I was in university, I'd heard stories about horrible landlords of student housing but hadn't experienced it myself. Until third year, when it felt like we got 3 years worth of shitty landlords all in one go. It began when I heard noises in the wall behind my bed at night. I brushed it off for a while until I realized that it was an animal in the wall. I told the landlords the next day, and they immediately played dumb, acting as if I was stupid in front of my housemates for suggesting that something could fit inside of a wall. That was the first alarm bell. Why immediately try to embarrass me into dropping it? After explaining that I know what a cavity wall is, she asked if we'd seen anything in the kitchen, oddly specific. We didn't think about it until later. From then on her husband dealt with us. We weren't aware that he was our landlord too. A little time passes, still nothing done about the noise in my wall, not that it was a surprise. I'd worked out by then that it was probably something like a mouse, and that it could run through the terrace of houses, as long as it didn't chew its way through my wall or die in there. I put the whole thing on the back burner. Until we were all sat in the sitting room, and heard a thud in the kitchen. Then squeaking. There was a giant rat in our kitchen. The rat disappeared into a hole in the, completely crumbling, kitchen wall, and the landlord claimed that we made it up, and that they'd never had a rodent problem. I contacted the previous tenants through Facebooking names I found on letters for them that had been posted to us by mistake. The property had had a rat problem for the last 3 years before we moved in at least. I set a rat trap and caught one, took photos, and sent them to the landlord to tell him to sort the problem out. He told us that because there was a line in our contract about the landlord not paying for pest control, the contract specified wasps' nests etc., we didn't even think about rats when we signed it, that we'd have to pay the hundreds of pounds to fix it. He'd knowingly written that into our contracts so he wouldn't have to pay out, instead of fixing the kitchen wall and the exterior wall where the rats were getting in. To cut the rest of the setting the scene part of the story short, we called the council, who sent a pest control team. While on their visit, one of the men took my housemate to one side and told her that our landlord is evil and he is known for getting nasty. They told him that it wasn't our fault that there were rats, it was his, and he screamed in my face until he was bright red about how I was a terrible person and was trying to take him down for no reason. One of my housemates had to leave because she was scared. I wasn't. We were in a room full of men, who were backing us up, making himself look worse for screaming in my face like that. I'm and was 22 at the time, about half his size. He tried to sue us for slander. It isn't slander if it's true, so swing and a miss. Now, for the revenge. It was written into our contract that we had to be notified 24 hours in advance if anyone needed access to the house, which included house viewings. I began my mission: stop any other students from getting stuck in this hellhole. The house was being shown by agents, so it made it fairly easy. I left the rat traps in prominent places, casually explaining why we needed them if asked, and if I felt I was being too subtle, making a fake show of "oh gosh, please ignore the rat traps." The landlord said he'd fix the kitchen wall where they get in but hasn't gotten around to it, so we have to catch them. I was honest about the mold problem in the bathroom. When I found out they were planning on increasing the rent by $100 a month, I made a point of saying something like, well, it's just about worth the rent I was paying. I made sure to say his name, so they wouldn't get away with using his wife's name as a front while his reputation for aggression stayed hidden. The agents never said anything to me directly, and because we had to be notified I could always make sure I was home when there was a viewing. My housemates fully supported my revenge, but I was the woman of action in the house. When I'm sure I'm in the right, I will do what's necessary to make things right. That was until they tried to turn up unannounced one day, not even knocking, just unlocked our front door and walked in. Luckily I was in the house, and kicked them out for not informing us, and told them that they were in breach of our contract. If the shitty landlord could use it to beat us with, two can play at that game. No new tenants had signed for the house by the time we were free of that hellhole. It's been 2 years now though, so I have no idea what happened to the rat house. EDA, firstly, I can't believe this post got so popular. This is my first post on Reddit, so thank you. Secondly, I've had a lot of people asking where this was because they had similar experiences. At the risk of him seeing it, and trying to sue me again, it was in Southampton. Apparently there are a lot of similar, shitty, landlords out there across the UK. Story 3. Terror neighbors make our lives hell. Returned the favor by getting them raided. As we found out that we'd be expecting, not 1 but 2 kids, we knew we had to move to a real house with more space. At the time we were still living in a 1-bedroom studio 1 up from the ground floor, with its only entrance being a metal fire escape, stairs. Not ideal for a pregnant woman, let alone to live with 2 small babies. So, we found a privately leased house that was newly renovated and had all the room and a large garden we were looking for. Signed the lease and immediately collected the keys. As the owner drove off, the woman next door comes up to me, immediately demanding we not make noise before noon as her BF works nights and sleeps in and a whole bunch of other do's and don'ts. So right of the bat knew, trouble incoming. As the house was fully renovated and not much had to be done, we were like, don't poke the bear, we'll do the things that make noise after noon. We moved in after 2 weeks and the whole street was warm and welcoming. my wife was almost due giving birth to my twin daughters and some offer help with anything we needed, real kind people. They also told us about our neighbors. Nobody liked them, he was a big bully and got into arguments with everybody. Also were known as radio pirates, as in illegal broadcasting on radio with all Dutch bangers. This music is just terror on your ears and possibly used on terrorists on black sites, which went alongside them partying Thursday Sunday till 5 in the morning. Loud music, constant yelling, always drunken etc. Really something to look forward to when moving in, certainly with 2 babies on the way. The partying began immediately, full blast. Real classy for someone demanding to be quiet when douchebag needs his beauty sleep. Then one day my Phil came to put new grass in. He has his trailer parked at the back of our houses, which is public space. Not according to him though, know that exact spot where the trailer, full with grass sods, quite heavy stuff, was parked was his spot and we had to move the trailer. Not going to happen as I was not planning to walk all the way around the house with the sods. He gets angry right away and demanded me to move it. I told him to go fuck himself. I was done with him already then and there. I'm also a ginger, so besides having no soul I do have a temper which is always in check until you provoke me repeatedly. Anyone who knows me will tell you that you really had to make an effort for that to happen. We went on working and end of day comes when my Phil wants to leave. Hooks up the trailer and bam, there was douchebag, telling him off, yelling it's his spot and he better does not do this again or else. Mess with me all you want, I can handle it, but what you don't do is threaten my family. I ran outside and told him in no uncertain terms to back off or he'll be the sorry one. Total bluff on my side. Yes, I have that temper, but I'm not impressively built and have no hidden fighting skills. I do fight dirty. He backs off. Phil leaves and I go inside where I find my wife crying. She got scared of him maybe doing something to her father and / or me, and this is something we don't need right now. Combined with hormones from being pregnant, and you can paint that picture. So I'm even more pissed but had to promise not to act on anything. I won't, dear, not yet anyway. Time went on without any real incident and then came the time my wife goes into labor. Didn't go smooth and ended up having to deliver with C-section, or whatever it's called, because daughter 2 was almost strangled by the umbilical cord. We had to stay 3 nights, excruciating nights due to a lot of things. Finally we get to go home. Family had put a giant sign in our front yard welcoming the babies. The sign was already up for a few days prior to coming home, so our friendly neighbors definitely knew about it. But did they give a flying fuck? No, they did not. From the first night on they started to party and broad-blasted their terror music. They started at noon and continued to until 5 or 6 in the morning. Classy. They also kept going for days, so it wasn't just Thursday Sunday, it was all week long and the next. So we were broken, hardly slept. One of our daughters suffered from heavy cramps combined with all the noise and her parents at the end of their wits, so she cried a lot. And then I just had it. I researched some things on radio pirates, the laws and regulations, and on his large 5 MTR and antenna in his backyard, which was illegal in itself, but he used it to illegally broadcast on radio, which meant he had a lot of equipment to do so, which was even more illegal and can even get you jailed, but at the very least they could seize it all and fine him big time. In the 10-45K area. Now, I did not immediately turn him in, but instead were looking for another house to lease first. This because I figured it wouldn't sit well with him and having a wife and 2 babies in the house alone during the day because I had to go to work. I hear you guys thinking, why not involve the police? Well, they are utterly useless in cases like this. We called once and what they did disturbs me to this day. They rang at their doorbell and immediately started off by saying we called them about noise complaints. Yes, you read that right. No protection or whatsoever, just blatantly told them we were the reason they're there, told them to keep it down, and that was it. They didn't even follow up with us or anything. As you can guess, douchebag now was even more pissed and told me the next day, or yelled over the fence that separates our backyards, that I really should not do that again, a threat yet again of which I told the police. I didn't report it the first time as I chalked that up to alpha male and heat of the moment. But without witnesses to corroborate, nothing could be done yet again. Some days later I walked out the front door and he just stepped out of his car. Came up to me demanding I cut back some of our ivy that grew on our side of the fence because it tangled in with his biggest antenna. He would be gone for some hours and I could come into his garden to cut back the ivy that grew through on their side. And then a light bulb went on above my head. I told him politely that I would do that immediately. Why? Because that gave me the opportunity to find out the make and model of this antenna to ascertain its signal strength, where the cables go exactly and what kind of cables they were, again to know the signal strength it handled. Also, it gave me a good view on the equipment he had, through the windows so I could snap some photographs of it. This was the icing on the cake. Because in the meantime we did manage to find a new home and already had signed the lease so we would be gone in 2 weeks. Luckily we only had to paint some walls for the girls' room and furthermore just pack up our things and move them to the other house. So after I trimmed the ivy and collected my evidence I went online that night to find out the proper channels to report a broadcast pirate and which entity was tasked with catching said pirate. Turned out I had to call the telecom agency but also the police. Wasn't too happy with the latter but I remembered I have a nephew that works for the police. Officially his area was immigration but knew enough colleagues that could help us and we could trust not to confront them again saying I was the one that sent them. That was extremely important for our safety when doing what I was doing. So I gave both the agency and the police all evidence I collected, pointed them to the frequencies he pirated so they could listen in. Then they started a neighborhood investigation, which wasn't really necessary but this was to cover our asses to make it look like he got caught by accident because they had an active investigation in our area. You never know what he can learn from legal documents and such. We asked them to wait with the raid. Yes, they raid pirates' houses, preferably in the early hours of the day because of his beauty sleep rendering him incapable of fleeing or hide evidence etc. We moved 2 weeks later and they raided him 2 days after we moved. All of his equipment, computers, radios, cell phones and his car were seized. He left in cuffs, his wife/GF did too, for making a big scene and tried to interfere. All of which was live reported to me by one of my ex-neighbors who were equally ecstatic about this. It turned out, this wasn't the first time he got caught but his third time. His car had no insurance on it and his MOT failed. This would normally have no big consequence because he didn't drive it while raided, but they had the guy surveilled on for a week and that definitely meant he was seen driving it while not having insurance and valid MOT. He was fined somewhere around 30k euros, went to jail for 12 weeks and everything seized was destroyed except the car. His GF had I do 40 some hours community service. They had to sell the house, which made for very happy neighbors as they too were over and done with them. Like I said, I do fight, but very dirty. You have to really make an effort for me to get to that point, they did and suffered. Over a year later when shopping groceries I encountered them. With the foulest of looks, if looks could kill I'd be a smoldering heap of ash. But nothing more than that. Damn folks, kinda surprised about all the appreciation. Gold and silver awards, wholesome, masterpiece, helpful, bravo grande and so many upvotes. Thank you all, kind people. I honestly do not know what I can do with gold or silver but I promise you I'll spend it by giving back. This shit period in our lives turns into something better this way. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.